Hello, and in this video we're going to take a look at the Godslayer factions that are available in the Wave 1 starter boxes. So we've got the Mortans here, the sort of Romanesque faction. And as you can see, your warband leader here is the Centurion, who is a Legion sub-faction, and he is heavy infantry, so he can't move that much, and he's pretty slow with a movement of 3. He's got decent stats though. Melee 8, Missile 4, Magic 4, Defense 12, Armor 8, Leadership 10. Now that's pretty interesting. That is a pretty massive leadership range and also a good leadership number, but it's even better than that, as we'll come on to. He's got, as per standard, 6 action activations, and then he's got his abilities, his tactics, his upgrades, and then a pretty decent health bar. He's going to cost you 43 points, but what's particularly cool is he's got this leadership value of 10, but with the Centurion commander, that doubles. So effectively he's got a 20-inch command range, which is really mad. Close quarter fighter, he gets a bonus if he's in base-to-base contact with people, so it costs him down to a minimum of 1 activation, just 1 activation to do a melee attack, and he can disarm an opponent, which means they have to spend an additional action token to do a melee attack, so that's pretty cool. Now his tactics: unit enemy, cost him 1, Ancestral Pride, target friendly living model, may choose to gain either +1 melee or +1 on melee damage rolls. That's pretty decent. Coordinated Charge, at the beginning of its standard activation, a target friendly model unit may measure its charge range. So that's pretty good. So you can basically check whether you're going to be in range and then charge the relevant model, rather than risk, whiffing on your charge. And then Counteract, target enemy model unit may not perform or receive tactics. So good way of debuffing another unit. Now he gets backed up by the Preceptor, and he's only got a deployment limit of 1. His stats are pretty decent, so again, low move 3. These guys are heavily armoured, they're slow and sluggish, but good defence, and of course the abilities and the tactics. So let's have a look at all those. So Hardened Will, the Preceptor is not required to take Fear, Horror or Bravery tests, so pretty good. Riposte, each time a melee attack of an enemy model fails to hit, he spends 1 less action token on his next melee attack, down to a minimum of 1. Now that's pretty handy considering his melee attacks cost 2 or 3. Tactics, Campaign Veteran, each time an enemy model was hit by a melee attack of the target model unit, roll a d6, and it becomes a critical hit. Well, that's pretty good. You can basically generate critical hits. Parry, each time the Preceptor is hit by a melee attack, you may immediately make a melee attack roll. If this melee attack roll is higher, then basically it's a failed attack, so that's pretty good. Weapon abilities then: Ambidextrous and Death Blow. So Ambidextrous, he gets to get a free attack, and Death Blow, in addition to his normal damage roll, a target model hit is going to suffer 1 damage, so an automatic 1 damage. So he's a pretty good model and pretty good second in command sort of guy. Legionnaires then, so the mass troops, as you can see, you can have up to 8 of them. They again are slow but got pretty good stats. You can have up to 4 of them. They're a little bit pricier, 12 points per trooper rather than the 11 of the last lot we looked at. And their tactics: Pilum Assault and Tetsudo. So Pilum, each time the Legionnaires have made a successful charge, each Legionnaire may perform 1 POW2 missile attacks against the model. So that's pretty good. Effectively, you charge in, you chuck your spears, and then you close in for battle. And there's a whole load of extra stuff here, talking about redirecting your charge and all that good stuff. Now the Tetsudo, defensive formation, each Legionnaire gains +1 defense and +2 armor against melee and missile attacks, as long as he's in base contact with at least 1 other Legionnaire who is also in his unit and therefore in Tetsudo. So that's pretty good. Nice bit of tortoise formation there. And the sub-faction ability: the Legionnaires gain +1 leadership for any lead-based tests. So these guys are very disciplined, have really good leadership, but they're slow and a little bit pricey. So I'm not going to go into the individual kind of upgrades for these units because I'm showing you multiple factions. So let's move on to the Nordguard. Now the Nordguard are your Vikings. Now these guys really slow. They're kind of dwarves, these guys, if I remember correctly. clan subfaction, yeah. So these look like the dwarves. So, you know, pretty good range of stats. Leadership of 9, 40 points. That's relatively cheap, I think, compared to the other leaders. And then he's got his abilities and his tactics here. So armor knowledge, gain -1 defense and -1 armor against melee attacks. So yeah, he debuffs people he's attacking by hitting their weak spots. Fire resistance, can't be affected by fire. That's pretty useful, I guess, if you come up against someone with a fire attack. And then the Fell Commander, is that? Friendly clan subfaction models are not required to make leadership tests when receiving tactic orders. So that's really good. You can just hand out your tactics without any bother. Now the tactics he's got here: Chasm Cracker, Embolden, Grindstone and Shatter. So Chasm Cracker, draw a straight line of 4 inches starting from any point in any direction, and make 1 melee attack at -1 melee against every models whose bases touch. So that's pretty good. I guess he just slams his hammer into the ground and causes a mini earthquake, and it knocks them down, which is, you know, pretty powerful feature. Embolden, living friendly model gains +1 move, so that's really useful considering these guys are sluggish. So that's not bad. Grindstone, +1 power to melee and missile attack, so yeah, make them a little bit more powerful in their hits. And then Shatter, target enemy model within leadership range, so 9, and line of sight, suffers -2 on melee and -2 armor. So yeah, that's pretty good debuff ability. So yeah, not bad little guy. Decent health, so that's pretty good. And he's got some nice upgrades, of course. Now the Brewer of Odrubrir, is that? Yes. This is a really cool character. He's got this great big sort of brewing pack on his back. So the mini for this guy is pretty amusing. Really slow again. You know, decent defense and armor, good leadership. And then he's only got 1 talent, and that's brewing apparently. So once per round, in his standard activation, the brewer may affect himself or one other model with one of his brews. So he's a bit like the Plague Bearer guy from Bane Brood, that he hands out his buffs, and that's this stuff here. So Guardian Draft, Hardneck Mead, and Strong Arm Ale. So target living model units gain +1 defense. Or target living model gains the ability to be resilient. Resilient being, let's have a look. Oh, okay, that's cool. So if they get reduced to 0 life points and on a roll of 5+, they get 1 life point and keep going. So it's a bit like the Troll Bloods, I guess, from Hordes, where, you know, that they're actually a bit hard to kill, although the chance of me ever rolling a 5 or 6 when I need to is probably pretty low. Strong Arm Ale, target living model gains +1 melee attack and damage rolls, but suffers -1 defense. So yeah, makes it better on the attack but weaker on the defense. Not bad. Again, only a deployment limit of 1 on this guy. Decent health bar and pretty decent weapon, although the range is only 1. Then the core fighting unit, the Fell Warriors. Yeah, not bad stats there. Deployment limit, surprise, surprise, of 4. Troopers, not bad, add on at 10 points each. You can have up to 8 of them. And let's see, what have they got? Shield Wall. Each warrior gains +1 defense and +1 armor as long as he's in base-to-base contact. Yeah, that's not too bad. And then Skilled Strike, gain +1 melee. Yeah, okay, not bad, not bad. Now their subfaction ability is Earthbound. Enemy spells targeting them suffer -2 on their spellcasting roll. So that's not bad at all, and I do like this bit: cannot be knocked down or have an involuntary move performed by enemy effects. So yeah, these guys, you sort of march them up, plant them in place, they're not going anywhere. So yeah, do quite like the dwarf faction there. They're not bad at all, and this mini, as I say, for the brewer is fantastic. Let's have a look at my actually, let's skip to troglodytes. We'll come back to my favourite one in a second. So troglodytes. Now these are sort of the shadow warriors. So this is actually the Trolloth, I think. Yeah, Trolloth subfaction. So we've got our Dustborn chieftain here. 54 points. He's pretty pricey. A little bit sluggish, but pretty decent stats. And you will actually find that all the leaders are very samey actually in stats, with a couple of variations. Very good health bar, a bit like the Bane Brood. Looks like that's 21 without counting it all up. And then he's got his abilities here and his tactics. So let's look at his abilities. So Fear. Okay, Savage Pride, +1 melee attack and damage when making melee attacks. And Commander, so friendly sub-faction models gain +2 leadership for testing on receiving tactics. So he's quite good at handing out tactics. So what are his tactics? Well, Carnage. Let's scroll this up a bit. There you go. So when performing a charge action, each target model may perform a slay movement as described in the Godslayer book. So would have to have a look in the book to see what exactly that does. Rage, target model gains +1 on its melee attack rolls. Rage lasts until the end of the current round, so yeah, not bad. Slam back, this one looks good. So each time the target model performs a counterattack that hits an enemy model with an equal or smaller size base than the target model, the model hit may be moved 3 inches directly away from the target model. So yeah, that's pretty good. These guys, if I remember correctly, are all medium or large bases. So against most standard infantry units, they're going to be flinging them all around the table. So yeah, that's not a bad thing. He doesn't have that many upgrades though. So he gets Heavy Morningstar Pair, a Suit of Armour and Talisman. Anyway, let's look at this giant beastie here, the sort of Cyclopsy type character. So not bad stat line again. Activations, yeah, okay, decent health bar, and yeah, all these abilities are what we're interested in. So Fear, the Feral Hammer Fist causes fear, yeah, okay. Feral Icon gives stuff within 4 inches of him the ability to ignore fear or horror tests, so yeah, nice. Threaten, so living enemy models engaged by him may only target him. So yeah, what you can actually do is you can charge in a unit and this Feral Hammer Fist, and everyone will attack the Feral Hammer Fist and therefore keep your maybe weaker subunit alive. So that's not too bad. War Rager then. Each time the Hammer Fist destroys a model through melee attack, you may spend 1 action to immediately perform the Slay movement. So I'm guessing this is a little bonus move you can perform after you've killed someone. I don't actually know exactly what that does. I'll have to look that up. Tactics then. Rumble. Enemy models with a smaller base size and within 1 inch of him must immediately pass an armor test or be knocked down. Okay, so that's pretty good, and you can have 2 of these guys. So yeah, they're not bad, bit of fun, and they're big base models and pretty impressive, imposing mini on the table. And then Ironhide Brutes, who again, following the standard format, are rather slow moving, but you know, pretty decent stats, and they've got really good health. And you only get 3 of them as standard, and you can only upgrade them to a maximum size of 5. Their weapon, you know, looks okay, but this ignore shields, that's really useful. It's going to, you know, make it a bit easier to hit people and damage them. So what are their abilities? Critical knockdown. On a critical hit, the target is knocked down, so that's always good. Fearless, so they don't need to take fear tests. And Savage Pride, they gain +1 melee and +1 POW when making melee attacks against a model with an equal or larger size base. So they yeah, they're pretty decent at fighting these guys. Weapon ability, ignore shields, well, we know what that does. And the sub-faction ability for these guys is regeneration. At the end of each Ironhide Brute standard activation, roll D3 and add that back. So these guys are pretty resilient, pretty hard to chop down. You can have 4 of them, but the downside to these guys being pretty good is, you know, they're small unit size and you're only going to get 2 extra, but at a cost of 15 points each. So let's move to what I think is my favourite faction at the moment, the Wild Folk. Now the Wild Folk are your sort of Celtic guys, and these guys tend to be quite shooty and decent at moving, and I think they've got good defence but poor armour in general. So the Pendragon, yeah, nice stats there. Leadership's not bad. He's going to cost you 45 points, and he's got the ability to have a secret deployment, so you can sort of hide him on the table, and I believe that's covered in the rule book how that works. And he's got a decent amount of upgrades available and reasonable health. So he's a combat master, so he may choose a fighting style when performing counterattacks, not just when he's performing attacks. Dugout, before the setup phase, nominate a friendly model unit and they can gain secret deployment. Vanguard Valor, if the Pendragon successfully charges all friendly models that were within his leadership range of 9 and which had line of sight to him, may reduce the cost of their charge actions if they're charging the same unit. So he's really good at bringing people with him. Tactics then, Sneak, Sword Dance and Wild Charge. So Sneak, +2 defense against missiles. Sword Dance may roll 1 additional die on his melee attack rolls. That looks pretty good, and of course you just pick the best dice results. And then Wild Charge, when charging, target friendly model gains +1 melee attack rolls this round. Okay, that's pretty good. I do like that. Sneak, I guess, could be useful on occasion. He's going to be supported by the Bard. Only one guy per 500 points. Going to cost you 24 points. Decent stats again. You know, defense looking pretty good. Quite a lot of stuff to pay attention to here, and then not much going on over here, and he's a little bit weak. So harmonic tactics channeled through the Bard of Aid Singer, automatically received by any target model unit that do not require leadership. So yeah, he's a good way of sort of remotely teleporting tactics by the looks of it. Musician, the Bard counts as a musician as explained in the Godslayer rulebooks. That's something we might need to look up. Courageous, target friendly model within leadership, so 8, and line of sight of the Bard immediately rallies. Okay, so that's pretty decent. If someone's trying to run away because they're wavering, you can rally them. Special talents, Minstrel may perform any of his songs, which are these things here. So Legend Lore, Curse, and Victory March. So target model within leadership range gains +1 melee or damage. Yeah, pretty standard, I'm guessing. Target living model units within, again, the 8-inch leadership range may not benefit from Fearless or Hardened Will. Okay, so that's good debuff. And then target friendly models within leadership may choose a long charge as a valid charge option. Okay, that's interesting, a long charge. Okay. And then the Blade Singers, reasonable stats, not great. You can have up to 8 of them. They've got a couple of nice tactics, and they've got a missile and melee weapon. So they've got a spear which happens to have a sling on the end. They're fairly cheap to upgrade, only 10 points per trooper. Deployment limit 4, as we've come to expect. And then Hail of Hornets, immediately remove 1 action token from a living enemy model within 8 inches and line of sight. So basically you can pepper them with a load of sling stones and try and take away their action tokens. And that's really good if someone's left 1 action token on a unit, so they can like counter attack someone who's about to charge them. Well, activate your Blade Slingers, chuck a load of stones in their face, strip away that action point, and then charge in your solo, for example. They've also got a hedgehog formation where they get +1 defense against melee attacks as long as they're in base-to-base contact. So as you can see, the starter sets all have a very similar sort of stat line. So let's just pull that up. So here I've actually got the various leaders for comparison. So as you can see, the Bane Brood have a nice fast movement of 4, whilst the Nord Guard are 2. The rest of the leaders move 3. Almost all of them have a melee of 8, apart from the Wild Folk, who have a melee of 7, and then pretty much all of them have a missile skill of 4, apart from the Wild Guard, who have a missile skill of 7. So the Wild Folk have the kind of shooty faction. Magic, fairly consistently 4. Defense, well, yeah, the Wild Folk are the most nimble, so they're 15. Then the Bane Brood at 14. Everyone else is pretty much 13, apart from the Mortan, who is 12. Then armor, obviously it flips a bit, and basically these 3 factions, so the Banes, the Haladines, and the Wild Folk are making do with 7, whilst the other guys are 8, 9, with obviously the Trolls being the toughest at 9. Leadership wise, it's all over the shop, kind of 8, 9, 10, but yeah, the 2 organised human factions are the most organised with the leadership of 10, and then they've all got an activation of 6. So there you go, that should give you a little bit of a feel for the faction. So the Wild Folk, harder to hit but easier to damage. The Trolls, you know, resilient but do tend to get hit, and you're relying on their regeneration and their armour to see them through. The human factions, very good on the leadership, and yeah, nice little mix up there. So that has been a quick look at the profile cards for the various factions that you can get in the Wave 1 starter kits. hopefully that's given you a bit more of an idea of maybe the faction you're interested in. So my plans for the future, as I mentioned on a couple of occasions, is obviously I'd like to look at the factions in turn. I'd also like to try and attempt a playthrough. Now that's going to be a while. It's probably going to be at least a week before I can even come back to considering taking that on. I am reaching out, as I say, to Megalith Games to see if we can get some bits sent over to help me with that, and more news on that if and when it happens. So there you go. Until the next video then, take care, happy gaming.